A group of elderly, retired men gather each morning at a cafe in Tel Aviv. They drink their coffee and they sit for hours discussing the world situation. Given the state of the world, their talks are usually depressing. One day, one of the men startles the others by announcing, "You know what? I'm an optimist." The others are shocked, but one of them notices something fishy. "Wait a minute. If you're an optimist, why do you look so worried? You think it's easy to be an optimist?" It is not easy to be an optimist in the world we're living in. There are so many things that we can mourn. We can mourn the missed opportunity of our world uniting together to face a worldwide pandemic. We can be saddened by all the needless deaths. We can be saddened for all the people who couldn't properly mourn. We can be saddened for all the people who got sick because they couldn't get care. We can be saddened for all the people who lost their jobs. And we can be saddened for all the people who had to work but were petrified of getting sick. We can be saddened for all the people who've been alone for over 4 months, for all the people who haven't gotten a hug. And we can be saddened for all the people who can't get away, who are trapped, who are afraid. We can be saddened for all the people who've given up hope because of racism, prejudice, and injustice. We can be saddened for all the people who missed out on more than a quarter years of their life on special occasions that they've been looking forward to, whether it be graduations, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, dances, concerts, events. There is so much that we can be saddened about. And yet our tradition challenges us to be an optimist, to look forward. I'm not so good in general at crying, and the idea of a day like Tisha B'Av, dedicated to remembering all the terrible things that have befallen our people, a day of crying and mourning, is hard for me to fully get my head into. While intellectually I get it, the idea of mourning destructions and tragedies that have happened over the past thousands of years is hard to wrap my mind around. And so every year on Tisha B'Av, I read to myself Arnold Lobel's classic story, Tear, Water, Tea, introduced to me by my friend and teacher, Rabbi Takman. Let me share with you the story. Owl took the kettle out of the cupboard. "Tonight I will make tear, water, tea," he said, and he put the kettle on his lap. "Now," said Owl, "I will begin." And Owl sat very still, and he began to think about all the things that were sad. Chairs with broken legs, and his eyes began to water. Songs that can't be sung because the words have been forgotten. Owl began to cry, and a large tear rolled down and dropped into the kettle. Spoons have fallen behind the stove and can never be seen again. More tears dropped down into the kettle. Books that cannot be read because some of the pages have been torn out. Clocks that have stopped, with no one too near to wind them up. Owls crying, and many large tears dropped into the kettle. Mornings nobody saw because everybody was sleeping, sobbed Owl. Mashed potatoes on the plate, he cried, because no one wanted to eat them. And pencils that are too short to use. Owl thought about many other sad things. He cried, and soon the kettle was all filled up with tears. "There," he said, "that does it." And Owl stopped crying, and he put the kettle on the stove to boil for tea, and Owl felt happy as he filled his cup. "It tastes a little bit salty," he said, "but tear, water, tea is always very good." There's a lot that we can cry about this year, and we should, and we need to. And maybe that's what Tisha B'Av is all about, giving ourselves permission to cry. 7 weeks from now, we will mark the next major Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah. Another name for it given is Yom Teruah, which could be translated as a day for crying. Maybe the idea is that if we cry today, we think about all the things that are wrong, then we can start working on how to fix them all, hoping that the new year will somehow be different, not just for ourselves, but for the whole world. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all a day of peace and of blessings.